My name is Paul Chance. I'm the Public Involvement Officer for the Miami-Dade Transportation Plan Organization. I've been here for almost 20 years now. And it's a pleasure again to be able to speak to CAC and be able to come to you with some more information about how you can be a part of the planning process, transportation planning process. So we have two items on the agenda today. One is called the SMART M.A.P 2050 LRTP, and then we have another item today, which is called the Transportation Improvement Program. So it's something that you definitely want to be a part of. Your opinion counts, your comments count, and that's the only way we can really move forward to a better transportation system. At this point in time, what I want to do is just kind of go around and you can just introduce yourself, and we just kind of get familiar with one another. And Mr. Sears, we can start with you. I know we have somebody here. I don't know that name. Is Tessa Antenera? Something like that. But if you could just introduce yourself as well and unmute. Well, I'll start with Mr. Sears. If you could just start and introduce yourself, and then we'll just go around the room. Mr. Sears, look like he might be frozen. So we'll go to my right, which is Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Rosenberg. I am the TPO Deputy Administrator for Transportation and Land Use, and it is my pleasure to join you today.
And we have Ms. Scott.
Good afternoon. My name is Akua Scott, and I'm a community organizer for CAHSD. And thank you for holding this Zoom because it's very important that we all know what's going on in transportation.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Scott, for joining us. We have Franchesca.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to join and learn from you all. Franchesca Taylor, Miami-Dade TPO.
All right, awesome. And I see Mr. Sears has just joined us back. As he gets situated, we have Damien. If you just
okay, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I apologize.
All right, awesome.
I've been having some connectivity issues with my Zoom. I put in a request to ITD to come and remedy the situation for me, so they will be coming. I apologize for that. My name is Al Sears. I'm Special Projects Administrator here at Community Action Human Services Department. On the call on this platform today, we've got several of our staff. Ms. Scott has already introduced herself. We have Kurt Lothar from Florida City. We have Ketchler Antinor from Edison. We also have Damian Dunkley from South Beach. So right now we've got at least 9 of the 16 CACs represented by staff persons who will be transferring and conveying information back to the CACs. First thing I want to do is thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chance. Thank you, Ms. Rockwell, Chris. Thank you for your support. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to have our citizens engaged in the process of understanding more about all of the facets of the transportation planning organization and the Transportation Improvement Program, the long-range transportation plans for the county. This is a wonderful opportunity for citizens to be engaged in the process and to give feedback and recommendations on what the county envisions and plans for the future. Also, in reviewing the documents, we realize that you guys put a lot of hard work into constructing this document. It is broad, it is comprehensive. It covers all modes of transportation that we utilize here in Miami-Dade County. And so we know that the outcomes are positive. It provides a chance to improve mobility. It enhances access. It addresses congestion. It also improves roads, bridges. There's a coherent linkage in terms of the different modes of transportation that we have in the county, whether it's air, rail, the roads, the highways, the buses, bicycle paths, utilizing the water, mass transit. So we all benefit immensely from this plan, this document. And there's a lot of funding considerations that go into putting it all together comprehensively. So we thank you. We're happy to be here. We know that this is a long-term partnership that we have built and sustained with the Transportation Planning Organization. Mr. Chance, we always take advantage of the opportunity to have you come out and address the 16 CACs and then to keep us abreast of all developments as it relates to transportation issues for Miami-Dade County. So we're happy to be here. I will now turn the program back over to Mr. Chance.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sears. Appreciate that. I just wanted to introduce Kurt. Appreciate Kurt being here. And thank you. And we have somebody named Antenor. If you could just unmute and just introduce yourself.
Sometimes we have problems with the Edison, with the internet capability. So Mr. Antenor may not be able to,
Okay.
but he can hear and he can see you.
Okay.
We've had some
Awesome.
Zoom problems.
Okay. Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that was we wasn't neglecting any citizen. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, we want to thank y'all for joining us. This is a great opportunity for us to get the message to you, and then for you to get the message to the citizens. And so you could be knowledgeable about the transportation, the TPO. And we appreciate you being here. Your comments matter. Your comments are part of the transportation planning process. And we just want to thank y'all for being here today. And we're going to start off right now with Franchesca Taylor. She's going to tell you more about the SMART 2050 LRTP, SMART M.A.P 2050 LRTP. And I'd be remiss to give a quick, I don't want to say shout out, but to let you know, acknowledgement of Elizabeth Rockwell and also Regina Solano, who is part of the PIO team. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Franchesca, you have the floor.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. And Mr. Sears, you gave a good kind of intro talking about all the modes and how they're interconnected and, you know, how these projects are developed. I think that lays the foundation together well for the long range transportation plan. Again, I'm Franchesca Taylor, and one of the projects that I manage here at the TPO is the long range transportation plan. We have themed it SMART M.A.P 2050, Mobility, Accessibility, Prosperity. So I'm going to go over a few slides with you, and then we'll have a moment for you to actually give us some of your feedback. So not only is your feedback warranted, but we ask, you know, that is the major ask for today, especially on my end, is to spread the word of doing, and definitely encourage the citizens that you know and are in contact with to get involved. So on the next slide, I'll give you a little bit of background on what the long range transportation plan is. So it is a federally mandated document. Any metropolitan planning organization that has more than 50,000 residents has to do a long range transportation plan. And what this does is it helps set the priorities over the next 20 years as a minimum for all of the transportation projects that we want to implement. And as Mr. Sears alluded earlier, that's all modes. It's bike ped, it's transit, it's freight, not only on the road, but the port. All of those things are included. So by federal mandate, we have to do at least 20 years, but the Miami-Dade TPO goes over and beyond, and we plan out for the next 25 years, and we update this on an every 5 year basis. We want to make sure that our plan is performance driven, so it is very much driven by our goals and objectives, and then from those goals and objectives, we create performance metrics, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So one of the big things that comes from the LRTP is the cost feasible plan. And this is kind of our laundry list, so to speak, or a grocery list of all the transportation projects that we want funded over the next 25 years, and we break them up over priority bands like you would see on the screen. So priority band 1 through priority band 4. And Chris is going to talk a little bit later about specifically priority band 1. Priority band 1 in the LRTP, it becomes our transportation improvement program. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where projects go from funded to being implemented. So this is how, there's teeth, created for the LRTP process. And just to, kind of show the cycle of how our LRTP is connected to other plans, there are other agencies that we partner with, and we take their projects as well and ensure that they are reflected in our cost feasible plan. Not only is that a federal requirement, but it really just does help everyone read from the same playbook over the next 25 years. So the next slide. Without further ado, so on the next slide, you'll see the phases of the 2050 LRTP. So it takes about 2 years to put this plan together. It's an intensive process, and we've broken up that process over five phases, and they all start with P. So the first phase is the public involvement process, and we call this the people phase. This is where we go out to the public, we engage with you, citizens, your neighbors, business owners, the like, etc. We get feedback throughout the 2-year process on what we want to be, how we want to grow, what are our priorities. And as you can see, this part of the process really spans the whole 2-year span. So the LRTP is aimed to be adopted in summer 2024. Well, the people phase starts the earliest and it ends the latest, just so that we can ensure that people are involved throughout the process. The next phase is the performance phase, and that's the phase that we're actually currently in. This is where we are setting our goals and objectives. I mentioned earlier that we are performance-based. We want the LRTP plan to be performance-based so we can track our progress. And this is where we set our goals and objectives. So what we do is we go out to the public, we ask about what the vision is of the people of Miami-Dade County, and then together we come up with what our goals and objectives are. And we are also led by federal and national goals as well. The next phase is the projects phase. In this phase, we analyze all of the full network of Miami-Dade County's transportation system. So that's roadways and transit, port, etc. We understand where the points of congestion are so that we can improve those points of congestion. And I'm sure all of us can think about places in Miami-Dade County that see recurring congestion. So we analyze those areas, and then we come up with a list of projects called our needs plan. And in our needs plan, those projects are specifically aimed at correcting that congestion. And we evaluate which projects of the needs plan best answer the question or best fix the problem of congestion. Then we go to our priorities phase. And in this phase, this is where we are setting out our cost feasible plan. So up until this point, we've created a long laundry list or grocery list, like I mentioned, of projects that we want implemented from now to 2050 in the next 25 years. But during the cost feasible plan phase, we actually think about what resources will we have available, what funding will we have available to implement these projects. And then in that way, we can prioritize based on those priority bands that we just mentioned. And then last but not least, we adopt our plan, and that's the policy phase. We take it to our TPO governing board. And as I mentioned before, this is aimed for 2024, summer of 2024. So that's the high level view of what all is encapsulated in the LRTP and what we do for each phase. So next, without further ado, I present to you Smart M.A.P 2050, Mobility, Accessibility, Prosperity. That is the theme for our 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. So I hope you are all excited. The next few slides, I really want to talk about where we are with the performance phase. So we've talked about the 5 phases of the plan, and we're in performance now, but I wanted to kind of bring you along for the ride, if that's okay, so that we can talk about where we are with setting our goals and objectives. So on the next slide, you'll see that we have a few steps that we've taken to develop our goals and objectives. One, we have done public outreach events. We've done a virtual outreach event, I want to say about a month ago now. And we do have an LRTP steering committee, and we regularly get their input as well. So that was kind of the first phase. Then we organize those phases, organize those goals by the themes, and then we are creating objectives so that we can measure against those objectives. And then last but not least, we're kind of tracking against what we're drafting up as far as goals and objectives, and making sure that they align with our federal requirements. And you see pictures of the process along the bottom of the screen. So next, let's talk about a little bit of the feedback that we've gotten. So as I mentioned, we've had those virtual outreach events, and we've engaged our steering committee. This is some of the feedback that we've gotten from them. So we've asked them some questions via a survey, transportation trends survey. One of the first questions was, what makes Miami-Dade County a great place to live, work, and play? And the top 2 responses were our public spaces, parks, open spaces, and beaches. Of course, everyone loves to be in the Miami sun, but then also our diversity of people. And I really was happy to see this, because I think, Miami-Dade, we think of ourselves, we're kind of a mixing pot, but we do have really cultural, historic neighborhoods and places. We have the little Hades, the little Havanas of the world, Wynwood, and I think all of that kind of feeds into the diversity of the people as well. So like those responses. And then also we asked, what is the most important transportation need? So this is kind of over the next 25 years, where do we need to put our money? And so the first response was improving transit, so making the headway shorter so you get a bus more frequently, or a train more frequently. The second was providing more travel options, so biking, walking, micromobility, options beyond just driving behind a wheel of a car, right? And then the third was improving safety, so ensuring that no matter what mode you're choosing, you are arriving safely from point A to point B. And then next, you'll see a continued some more responses that we've gotten from our survey. We asked everyone to describe how you envision Miami-Dade in 2050 in 5 words or less, which is kind of a challenge, but people gave their responses, and we put them together in a word cloud. And the word cloud you see before you, it makes the words that are repeated larger. So the larger words we see are interconnected, transit, reliable, safe, efficient. We see things like connectivity, sustainable, things of that nature. So these are the themes, these are the things that people want to see in their transportation network. And then we asked, what advancements do you anticipate by 2050? So how do you think transportation will change in the next 25 years? So the first response was high-speed trains. I think we already see some of that happening with Brightline and, the Brightline extension towards Orlando. The second was electric and alternative fuel vehicles. Again, I think that's something that we're already starting to see in the market with, Teslas and many electric vehicles. I think GMC and several other manufacturers have alternative fuel vehicles now. And then third, we see self-driving autonomous vehicles. We can see more of that coming on the market. Urban areas are kind of personal, what I like to say is personalized helicopters, so to speak, that can take small groups of people or even small freight loads and take it, from one spot to the next, typically in a more regional network. So maybe from here to Broward per se, or from South Miami-Dade to North Miami-Dade. And then also tied for fourth, we see increased telecommuting. So in the pandemic, we saw an increase in telecommuting, really by nature of us having to shut down. But I think a lot of employers have seen the benefit of that, and then and that may increase from now to 2050. So I hope you all are a little kind of jealous and really wanting to provide your input as well, because we do have the opportunity for you to do so. On the next slide, you'll see a QR code and a link at the bottom of the screen. I definitely want to encourage you to take the survey. You can, point if you have a smartphone, you can point the camera to the QR code and it'll bring up the transportation trend survey. It should take, maybe 2 minutes of your time to fill out the survey, and you're giving us kind of the similar feedback that I just went over that helps us understand what the citizens of Miami-Dade County are looking for in the next 25 years so that we can prioritize those types of projects. So that's one survey, and that's really kind of covering the whole system. I do have another survey on the next slide, which is our bicycling needs survey. Now, this is specifically aimed towards bicycling. So bicycling, like I mentioned, is only one of the modes that we plan for, but it's a very important part of our network, especially for those who are from zero-car households. This might be their main means of transportation to school or work. So again, you can point your camera to the screen or navigate to the website at the bottom of the screen. The URL is posted there, and answer a survey there as well. Again, very short survey. I think both of them are less than like 15 questions. So, shouldn't take too much of your time, and possibly easy for you to share the link to your friends, citizens, etc. as well. So next slide. I think that's pretty much all that I wanted to cover for today. I do have contact information available for me if you have any questions. We do have a wonderful website. I'm a little biased, but we have a website available to you so that you can, again, take these surveys. Those surveys are linked on our website, and you can see more information about the LRTP and the phases, and keep in contact with us as we continue the process. So I think at this point I hand it over to Chris, and then we take questions at the end.
Paul, it's your pleasure, whichever you prefer.
Yes, that sounds good to me. Thank you so much, Franchesca. That was a great presentation. And, I learned a lot. Hope you learned a lot. And the opportunity to continue to learn will be here on our TPO YouTube channel as well. So, Chris, at this point in time, you can learn a little bit more now about the TIP, which is our Transportation Improvement Program. Chris, you have the floor.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Franchesca, for an excellent presentation. It's my pleasure to join the Community Action Human Services Division today and our CAC members throughout the county. I do represent the TIP annually to all of our CACs, and this year is no different. But this year, I'm very happy to present it under the context of its relationship to the LRTP. So I think that this is a very efficient format to explain our macro document, which is the 25-year planning horizon that Franchesca just walked us through, to our more micro and immediate. And I think that Paul and Franchesca put it the right way. This is where the rubber hits the road. So the TIP is that first priority band of the long-range transportation plan. This is basically projects that have made their way all the way to the front of the line through the process and are now programmed to be implemented over the next 5 years. So unlike the planning horizons that are 20 years, these are going to happen in a very short amount of time. But we also allow for a 45-day public review and comment period from members of the public. And guess what? That time is now. We opened our 45-day public review period this month, and it is all running through for the next month until May 25th. So we have exactly 1 month from today to receive comments from the public on the Transportation Improvement Program. And we're very happy to come to you first so that we can ask for all of our community members to take a look at the document. It's about 11 to maybe 1,300 pages this year. Which represents $11.7 billion in transportation improvements over the next 5 years. That is a record TIP for Miami-Dade County. And I think that the big takeaway from our recovery from COVID as far as transportation investments is now displayed in the next 5 years. I was very pleased to see the sustainability and the bounce back from our revenue impacts from the COVID-19 emergency. We are now in a much more stable place. Our projects are back on track. We've actually had quite a few projects advanced into the 5-year window that had previously been deferred out. They're now back in. Some highlights to share with you all are the Golden Glades Interchange Improvement Project is now fully funded in this TIP and is going to be initiated in the next year. That is a project that we've been pursuing for well over 30 years, and we now have it fully funded in this TIP. We also have quite a few investments in the SMART program that are funded in this TIP, as well as several other local municipal projects and multimodal improvements. One of the big highlights of this TIP is that we have 44% of investment in public transportation. So that covers all passenger transportation systems, including the airport, seaport, public transportation, and transit, and all multimodal investments. So that is quite a unique aspect in Miami-Dade County as represented compared to other regions in the United States. We are putting our money where our mouth is. So we are saying, and what we've been hearing from the community is we need to invest more in public transportation. And this TIP is showing that we are going to do that in the next 5 years. And our adopted LRTP also highlighted that as the top priority. So I think that we've been consistent in hearing from the public that is the priority. Our board has addressed that as well as the top priority of Miami-Dade County, and we have now invested in our transportation resources across all transit and transportation agencies in public transportation. So I would encourage all of the CAC members to please visit the Miami-Dade TPO website, or you can submit your comments directly to information@mdtpo.org. But on our landing page on miamidadetpo.org, you can find the TIP right on the top of the page. We do have a link directly to the document, as well as a link to provide your comments. Again, our 45-day public review is concluding on May 25th, and we would really appreciate all of your feedback. Although I did mention that this is projects that are already programmed in the TIP, what I would encourage you to do is to try to find projects in your own neighborhoods. You can do so on our website by going to your neighborhood on a map and locating all the projects that are planned for the next 5 years. And if there's something that's not there that you'd like to see done, submit a comment. Just because these are cost feasible and cost constrained projects over the next 5 years does not mean that public comment will go nowhere. We can also encourage our public transportation agencies and our partners to consider advancements from priority period 2 of the LRTP into the TIP. So your public review is important, and your comments are very important. We can make changes in our community, and we always value all of your input and time spent in reviewing our documents. And with that, we can go on to the next slide, and I think we're ready for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, so much. That was a great explanation. And Chris didn't mention, but the flyer is in Spanish, English, and Creole. So we really want to get the information out to all of our communities. If you have a church, neighbors, we have sent information to Mr. Sears. We sent to you individually. I know Mr. Sears has done an e-blast already to everyone with this information. Please get it out into the communities. We've got it into the libraries. We are just trying to get it anywhere and everywhere to hear back from you, because everyone is affected by transportation. So at this point in time, we just want to encourage you to participate. I encourage your members to participate. And if you have any questions, Mr. Sears, over the floor to you to direct any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris, Franchesca, outstanding presentations, quite illuminating, very informative. Just a couple questions that came up. You mentioned something in reference to analyzing congestion and then coordinating a plan to reduce the congestion that we all face here in Miami-Dade County. My question has to do with the rail system and some of the smart corridors? And is there any update on perhaps the north-south linkage of the train system? I know that, we've got the rapid bus transit going on down south, but is there any plan that might be connected towards perhaps having the tri-rail extended down south instead of, coming to the government center and linking up with Brightline, or having Brightline build a rail system to go from government center all the way down to Florida City? Because it's just a thought. I know this came up in your previous presentations from last year, and I was just wondering if there's any development in reference to that regard.
Sure, I can start.
I know the
and then-
question was all over the place, but
Yeah, no, it's a big
work with
hefty
me.
question. That was a hefty question. Solve all the transportation problems. No, so to answer the first part that I heard, yes, we do have a congestion management plan. It typically kind of focuses on the recurring congestion that we have on our roadway network, and what it does, or what we typically do is kind of suggest transit improvements or other projects that can help eliminate that congestion. And typically what those types of projects might be technological in nature. So it might be a matter of changing signal times and improving, transit headways. So just kind of giving some context on how the congestion management plan kind of works. And then, that kind of ties into your question about the SMART plan. We are definitely supporting the implementation of the SMART plan, now the SMART program. But as a planning agency, our job is to help get the funds available to implement the SMART plan system, not only for the North and South. So we, not only for the North and South, but for all of the corridors. So we coordinate heavily with our planning partners who will implement those services. So for a little bit more detail, I'll probably have to refer to, DTPW, as they are spearheading specifically the North and South alignments or corridors to talk about where they are with that process. And then your question about Tri-Rail into downtown, my understanding is that Tri-Rail is aiming to bring that service into downtown by the end of this year. I believe this fall, October, November is what we've heard lately. So I think they're on track for that, and we'll all just kind of stay tuned in as we hear more from them. Again, that is on the implementation side, and we're more on the planning and programming, ensuring that the funds are available so that projects can be implemented. And then your question about the Brightline to further south, it's a great question. Brightline is a private entity. So, there could be some conversation there. I'm sure it would have to depend on the availability of the right of way, the railroad condition, all of those things. So, try to touch on some of the questions that I heard, but Chris, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you, Franchesca. That was a very all-encompassing. Just a little detail to add to the last question. You are very with the times, Mr. Sears, because our chairman just last Thursday ordered our executive director to produce a scope, a budget, to look at all commuter rail opportunities within the county. So we'll be taking a deep dive into all the existing rail infrastructure, some of which is either abandoned or some of which is just really underutilized and kind of, in bad condition, that is owned by either CSX or some of the other rail line companies, to provide recommendations for potential future commuter rail development. So you're right on time. We're developing a scope for that effort right now. In fact, just last Thursday, we were asked to do so. So we'll be incorporating that. Obviously, recommendations that come out of all of our studies become inlaid into the long range transportation plan and then eventually become part of the TIP. So kind of a great question to ask us, because you can see how ideas move their way through all of our different federal documents.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a couple new people join us here. I don't know if they have any questions. I don't know if they heard the whole presentation, but if there's, I'm gonna open the floor for 5 seconds to see if anybody raises their hand, or if anybody wants to unmute, and ask any questions about their area, or any concerns that their members may have, or if they have heard at their meetings about transportation, future transportation.
Just one additional question while people are considering questions that they'd like to pose to the panel. The bicycle pathways. We know that we invited, I think the county invited a consortium of people from Denmark or Holland to come to Miami-Dade to show us, to demonstrate how we could easily transform some of our streets into bicycle paths. Has there been any additional development regarding the expansion of bicycle paths here in Miami-Dade County? And I'm talking, I know we've got the underline and that's emerging and it's about to be, introduced and implemented. But is there anything additional that would expand opportunities for persons who might want to use a bicycle and the bus and the train to get to work several times a week? So, I'm just curious as to any additional updates or development regarding expansion of the bicycle pathways here in the county.
Yeah, that's another great question. And I'll start again. And Chris, feel free to fill in anything I miss. You have really great questions, Mr. Sis. So very timely. So, kind of two-pronged there. In the LRTP plan, one of the things that we're focusing on is bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, which is why we have the survey, of course, to understand how people are currently using the system, and to also understand how they would like to use the system if it were in its ideal shape. So we want to funnel in, or we want to analyze what projects are already on the ground, where the gaps are, and then create a list of needs based on those network gaps so that we can program those projects into our LRTP. So that's one thing that we're working on as part of our LRTP effort. And then kind of outside of that, we have been working with multiple agencies, and I think Chris can talk to this a little bit more, to implement larger scale trail systems such as the Ludlam Trail, which is somewhat similar to the underline in nature in that it would span, kind of multiple municipalities and do that larger countywide connection. So those are two of the efforts that I can speak on.
Yes, thank you, Franchesca. And going from macro to micro, exactly where Franchesca left off is where I'll pick up. The Ludlam Trail is now fully funded in the TIP. Another huge initiative that we've been chasing for years to try to get it funded, because obviously the development is there. The community is asking for this, and we finally got the entire corridor, not only the flat work of the trail development, but also pedestrian bridges at all the main intersections funded. FDOT is being a huge partner in doing the design and construction for the 4 pedestrian bridges that are going to be going over the pathway, while Miami-Dade County Parks, Recreations, and Open Spaces is the lead for the flat work, the landscaping, and the trail development. All of the right-of-way has already been purchased by the county. It was about $25 million, but overall the project is about $110 to $120 million. We've got investment from the private sector coming, affordable housing. They've already broken ground on some affordable housing developments. So that's happening right now in the TIP. Also, this is a huge connection point, because one of our initiatives as an agency, a planning agency for years, has been to close the Miami Loop. The Miami Loop is basically the bicycle and pedestrian corridor that runs in a circle through all the major housing and population centers throughout the county. So getting the Ludlam Trail funded is a big portion of getting that full Miami Loop picture. So thank you, Franchesca, for connecting those dots.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sears. I want to say thank you, Chris. Thank you, Franchesca. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I think if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and start to conclude. Again, I want to thank Mr. Sears for getting the information out, his staff for being a part of this meeting, any citizens as a part of this workshop. We appreciate you once again. We do have TIP. We have a 45-day review. We are looking for you to get the information out into your community. We're looking for you to respond, for you to take the surveys, to be a part of this transportation process. We want to thank again and acknowledge, like I said, everybody on here. And we also want to encourage you to look at the documents, the LRTP, which is out now, called the Smart Map 2050 LRTP. So we'll encourage you to look at it. We have a website, a fantastic website. As you can tell, Chris and Franchesca are very knowledgeable about transportation. And this is something that we like to do, is at least try to get everybody together. I do come out to the meetings, to the CAHSD meetings, and do a presentation, but not this in depth. This is very good, very knowledgeable. So I kind of give you a high level overview of the LRTP and the TIP. But this was a great workshop for everybody to kind of learn more about the transportation process and how you could be a part of the process. And again, I want to encourage you to be a part of this process by looking at the documents, taking the surveys, and also getting the word out to your churches, to your neighborhoods, to your family members, to your coworkers. We have all the Spanish, English, and Creole. If you need to contact us, you can contact us at 305-375-1888. Again, that number is 305-375-1888. You can contact me, the Public Involvement Officer. My name is Paul Chance. I think if that's it, we're gonna end our meeting here, close it out. And if there's any other questions, I'll stick around, see if any questions at the end. But as far as this workshop is concluded. So thank y'all so much.
Before you close it out, Mr. Chance, I just want to say on behalf of our department and all of our staff and our community advisory committees that we thank you. We thank Franchesca, Mr. Rosenberg, Elizabeth Rockwell, and the leadership back in your office also for extending the opportunity for us to be engaged in giving comments and reviewing the plans and also completing the surveys, and for you coming out and giving those presentations to us, keeping us informed, keeping us abreast of all developments, and then engaging citizens in the process of finding out ways in which they can not only increase their knowledge about what's transpiring and what's planned for the future, but to take an active role in giving recommendations on what they feel would support those recommendations and plans in the future. These presentations are so positive, they're constructive, they're purposeful, and we appreciate your organization extending the opportunity for us. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll turn the program back over to you, Mr. Chance. We can close it out.
All right, one more time, I just want to make sure and give you my personal email address. You can email us or call us. Email is paul.chance@mdtpo.org. Again, paul.chance@mdtpo.org. Thank you so much. Again, number is 305-375-1888. Thank you all for joining us.